Uncle Vong, my neighbor, gave me a call, saying my troublesome motorcycle had already been taken care of by him for 5 yuan. On the other end of the line, his voice dripped with condescension and self-satisfaction. I silently hung up, pulled open my desk drawer, and printed out every invoice, every modification list, and every payment record from the past 2 years, arranging each sheet neatly. The next morning, holding that stack of evidence documenting the theft and illegal sale of property worth 400.037 yuan, I walked straight into the police station. The call had come at 3 p.m. "Tu Jiang, it's Uncle Vong here." Vong Kai Kwang's voice slid through the receiver. Still slick with smugness, I was staring at a shift chart on my computer screen. I just gave a quiet, not even bothering to lift my eyelids. "That junk motorcycle downstairs, I dealt with it for you." My fingers froze over the keyboard. That motorcycle was a limited edition Ducati V4 I'd spent 2 full years of salary to buy. Every bolt on it, every decal, I had personally chosen and installed. Engine, suspension, exhaust, everything had been replaced with the highest-end imported parts. It wasn't just a bike, it was the only breath of life I'd had in 2 years of youth. "How did you deal with it?" I asked. My voice was flat as dead water. Vong Kai Kwang clearly didn't hear anything unusual. Instead he raised his tone like he was bragging about a favor. "Parking downstairs is tight, you don't know that? Your broken heap was taking up space. The neighbors all had opinions. I found a scrap collector. Sold it for 5.000. I've got the money, come get it when you're back." He paused, voice full of patronizing instruction. "Don't think it's too little. That thing was about to rust out anyway. Getting 5.000 is already pretty good. You should be thanking me. I helped you solve a big problem." "Thank him." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles went white. The red and blue lines on the screen blurred, and all I could hear was that self-righteous face of his. 2 years, 24 months, over 700 days and nights of overtime work. Traded for a single phrase, broken heap. I said nothing. "Hello? Hello?" he called twice, sounding impatient. "All right, that's it. I'm busy. Remember to come get the money." The line went dead. The beeping tone rang sharply in the silent office. Slowly I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. In my mind flashed the moment I first wrote it. Wind screaming past my ears. Freedom so intense it almost suffocated me. The late nights alone in the garage, carefully wiping every speck of dust from its body. The cold metal parts that seemed to take on warmth after passing through my hands. 400,000, 250,000 for the bike, 150,000 for modifications. Every amount documented. I opened my eyes. The last ripple of emotion at the bottom of them vanished. Angry? That emotion was too cheap. I opened an encrypted folder on my computer. Inside, every electronic invoice, bank transfer record, and purchase receipt for parts was categorized clearly. I connected the printer. Sheet after sheet slid out. Still warm, like a mockery of the cold blood running through me. Purchase contract, tax receipt, customs certificates for imported parts, bank statements for each transaction, all stacked neatly into a thick pile. I put everything into a file folder, shut down the computer, put on my coat, and left the office. The sunset stretched my shadow long across the ground. Vong Kai Kwang, you thought you were just dealing with a troublesome piece of junk. You didn't know what you'd lit on fire with your own hands was a fortress built from 2 years of a man's devotion. And now I was going to make you spend the rest of your life paying for it. The reception hall of the city police station smelled faintly of disinfectant. The duty officer, a woman surnamed Lee, looked up at me, her eyes carrying the fatigue of the profession. "What is it?" "I'm reporting a case." I set the thick folder on the desk with a soft clack. She clearly thought it was another neighbor dispute and frowned slightly. "If it's a conflict, go to the neighborhood committee first for mediation. Don't run to the station for everything." "It's not a dispute," I spoke calmly, voice low but clear. "It's theft." Her expression immediately tightened. She gestured for me to sit and opened the folder. When she pulled out the first sheet and saw the purchase invoice stamped in red, 250 yuan, her pupils visibly contracted. She looked up at me again. I was dressed plainly, t-shirt and jeans, looking like a fresh graduate. She said nothing and continued flipping. Second sheet, third sheet, every page was an invoice for expensive modification parts, ranging from a few thousand to tens of thousands. Her breathing grew quicker, the pages turning faster and faster. The entire reception hall held nothing but the rustle of paper. When she reached the last page and saw the summary I'd typed, total value, 400.037 yuan, she inhaled sharply. She snapped her head up, eyes no longer tired, only shocked and intensely serious. All of these are real? Every amount matches bank statements and transaction records. I replied lightly. The bike is a Ducati V4. Parked in a fixed spot in my residential garage. I have the ownership certificate for the parking space. Her face changed completely. This was no ordinary theft. It was a major criminal case involving especially large value, enough for a sentence exceeding 10 years. She immediately grabbed the walkie-talkie on the desk. Xiao Zhang, Xiao Wang, come to reception now, big case. Two young officers hurried in. Officer Li pointed at the stack of documents. Voice low. This gentleman reports his motorcycle worth 400 yuan was disposed of without permission by his neighbor. Their expressions instantly mirrored hers from moments ago, stunned disbelief. Officer Li looked at me, her tone more solemn than before. Mr. Jiang, please recount the entire incident in detail. Don't omit anything. I nodded and repeated word for word Vong Kai-kwang's phone call, including that patronizing tone. He said, sold it for 5.000. When I finished, the reception room fell into dead silence. The corner of Officer Li's mouth twitched, as if she wanted to laugh but felt it inappropriate. And finally she just snorted coldly. 5,000. He really dared to imagine that. She closed the file, stood up, face hard as steel. Mr. Jiang, don't worry, we'll open a case immediately. Theft of a citizen's property, especially large value, it will be handled seriously. She turned to the two young officers. Xiao Zhang, check Vong Kai-kwang's information and address from the data Mr. Jiang provided. Xiao Wang, come with me, we leave immediately. Watching their decisive movements, I felt no ripple inside. Vong Kai-kwang, the game has begun. I hope you enjoyed spending that 5.000. The police car didn't use its siren, it slid silently into the underground parking lot of the apartment complex. Officer Li and I sat in the car, looking from a distance at my empty parking space. On the ground remained only a few tire marks and a dark stain of engine oil. My heart felt like it was being gripped by an invisible hand. She noticed my expression and lightly patted my shoulder. Don't worry, we'll do our best to recover it. I shook my head. I don't care whether the bike can be recovered or not. She froze. I turned to look straight into her eyes and said each word distinctly. I only care what punishment he'll receive. My gaze must have been very cold, cold enough that even a seasoned policewoman felt a trace of discomfort. She looked away and nodded. The law will give him a fair sentence. We went upstairs. Vong Kai-kwang's apartment was directly across from mine. Officer Li stepped forward and knocked. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed down the quiet hallway. After a long while, the door cracked open. Vong Kai-kwang's plump face peeked out, full of irritation. Who is it? It's late. When he saw the police, the annoyance froze instantly. Police? Who are you looking for? Officer Li showed her badge. City Police. Are you Vong Kai-kwang? I am. Officers. What's the matter? He stammered, eyes darting. She glanced past him at me, then said coldly, you are suspected of involvement in a particularly serious theft case. We require your cooperation with the investigation. Theft? Vong Kai-kwang shouted as if he'd heard the biggest joke in his life. You've got the wrong person. Haven't you? I've been an honest man my whole life. How could I steal anything? A heavy-set woman in pajamas shoved forward. It was his wife, Trong Tui Fan. The moment she saw the police, she planted her hands on her hips and put on a shrewish expression. "What are you doing? On what grounds do you say my husband stole something? Where's the evidence? Are you slandering him?" Officer Lee ignored her completely and stared straight at Vong Kai Kwong. Voice colder still. "Vong Kai Kwong, I'm asking you, this afternoon, did you dispose of your neighbor Jiang Du's motorcycle without permission?" He froze, then seemed to realize something. Seeing me standing there, he immediately pointed at my face and cursed. "So that's what this is about. The ungrateful brat reported me to the police. I kindly helped you deal with a pile of scrap and you bite back at me? Do you even have a conscience?" Trong Tui Fan chimed in. "Exactly. A broken bike taking up space. We sold it for you out of goodwill. Isn't 5,000 enough? So ungrateful." The husband and wife played off each other perfectly, embodying shamelessness. Officer Lee listened to their shouting without expression. After they finished, she spoke slowly. "Scrap?" She took out her phone, opened a photo of my Ducati V4, and held it in front of Vong Kai Kwong. "You mean this one?" He glanced at it and curled his lip in disdain. "Yeah, that thing. Looks impressive, but really it's just an empty frame." Officer Lee put her phone away and nodded. "Vong Kai Kwong, I am formally informing you, the pile of scrap you claimed was worth 5 yuan. After verification against the invoices and documents provided by the owner, has a total value of 400.037 yuan. Under Article 264 of the criminal law, theft of a citizen's property of especially large value carries a sentence ranging from 15 years to life." Each word she spoke hit Vong Kai Kwong and Trong Tui Fan like a hammer blow to the face. The hallway air froze instantly. The arrogance and disdain on Vong Kai Kwong's face cracked bit by bit, replaced by panic and numb disbelief. His mouth hung open, his throat making choking sounds like a dog being strangled. 400,000? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Trong Tui Fan's shrill voice ripped through the silence. She pointed at me, voice shaking. "It's you. You forged evidence to frame us. How could a broken bike be worth 400.000? You're trying to extort money." Officer Lee gave a cold laugh and took the handcuffs from Xiao Wang behind her. "Whether it's a frame-up or not, you can explain it at the station." The cold metal snapped shut around Vong Kai Kwong's thick wrists with a click. In that instant his legs went limp and he nearly collapsed. At last he understood that what he'd provoked wasn't trouble, it was catastrophe. The interrogation room lights were blindingly white. Vong Kai Kwong sat across from me, face ashen. The earlier ferocity had vanished without a trace, replaced by fear visible to the naked eye. I really didn't know the bike was that expensive. Officer, I'm wronged." He repeated that line over and over, voice choking like he was about to cry. Officer Lee sat at the head of the table, tapped lightly on the desk, expressionless. "You didn't know? Ignorance of value is not grounds for exemption. Now explain clearly the process of selling the bike and the buyer's information." His whole body trembled, eyes darting wildly. "It was just a scrap collector. I don't even know his name. Ran into him at the complex gate." Still lying, I watched his clumsy performance coldly. Officer Lee obviously didn't believe him either. She glanced at the clerk beside her and said, "Vong Kai Kwong, I'm giving you a chance. Confess honestly and you may receive leniency. Resist and you will be punished severely. The technical unit is already extracting surveillance footage from the gate. Finding the buyer is only a matter of time. If you confess now, it can count as voluntary surrender." That sentence became the final straw. His psyche collapsed completely and he burst into tears. I'll talk. It's Lu Tam from the area. He runs a used motorcycle shop. I sold it to him for 7,000. I told Tiu Jiang 5,000 so I could pocket the extra 2,000. Pathetic. Even now he was still thinking about that 2,000 difference. Officer Lee immediately ordered that Liu Tam be contacted and detained. 2 hours later, word came back. Liu Tam had been arrested. My Ducati V4 had also been found in his shop. When Officer Lee and I arrived at that so-called used bike shop, my fists clenched instantly. It was a filthy storefront in an urban village. The air reeked of engine oil and rust. My V4, the red beast I'd cherished like treasure, was being disassembled by a few assistants using tools. The signature red paint was scratched and gouged. Expensive carbon fiber parts had been pried off roughly. Even the engine block worth over 100,000 had already been hoisted out, ready to be sold separately. It looked like a dismembered corpse lying there silently accusing its butcher. Officer Lee's expression was extremely grim. She immediately ordered the scene sealed and had Liu Tam and the workers taken back to the station. Forensics arrived to photograph and collect evidence. I walked over to the bike and gently touched the cold wounds across its body. "Sorry," I said silently in my heart. "I didn't protect you." Back at the station, the case was already crystal clear. Vong Kai-kwong was suspected of theft. Liu Tam was suspected of receiving stolen property and illegal modification. Because the amount involved was especially large and the circumstances severe, both were placed under criminal detention immediately. When Trong Tui Fan received the detention notice for Vong Kai-kwong, she rolled on the station floor crying, cursing me as heartless and vicious, damned never to rest in peace. I only watched her coldly until officers dragged her out. "Go on and curse," I said. "That's the only thing you can do now." By the time I stepped out of the station, it was night. The city's neon lights were nothing but blurred streaks in my eyes. Officer Lee walked me out and handed me a cigarette. "Mr. Jiang, the degree of damage to the vehicle, we'll invite a professional appraisal agency to evaluate it. As for civil compensation, you can file a lawsuit." I took the cigarette but didn't light it, just held it between my fingers. "Thank you. That's our duty." She hesitated, then still spoke. "There's something I'm not sure whether I should say." "Go ahead." "Showing mercy to others is showing mercy to yourself. Vong Kai-kwong is hateful, but the rest of his life is basically finished already. Maybe you could." I cut her off. "If what was sold today had been a 400 yuan car, would you still say that? Or is it only because it was a motorcycle? In many people's eyes it's scrap. Trash. My devotion and passion are worth nothing to them. Something they can trample at will." I looked toward the flashing police lights in the distance. Voice icy. "I don't need to spare anyone. I only need him, and everyone like him, to pay. I want them to know there are things they aren't qualified to touch." In the days that followed, I lived normally. Work. Off work. Gym. Only each time I passed the closed door across from mine, I paused for a few extra seconds. I hired the best lawyer in the city, a specialist in criminal cases with civil claims attached. Lawyer Kim wore gold-rimmed glasses and looked refined. But when he spoke about legal clauses, his eyes revealed the instincts of a predator. After reviewing all the materials I provided, he said only one sentence. "Mr. Jiang, we're guaranteed to win this case. Do you want him to compensate? Or go to prison, or both?" "Both." I didn't hesitate. "Understood." He pushed up his glasses. "Criminally. Theft of especially large value. Starting point 10 years. Receiving stolen property and destruction of property, we'll request those be treated as aggravating factors. Civilly. Full compensation for vehicle losses and emotional damages. We'll make sure he's financially ruined." I liked those 4 words, financially ruined. Vong Kai-kwong's family clearly realized the severity. The first to come was his younger brother, Vong Kai-kwon. He stood outside my door holding a fruit basket, smiling ingratiatingly. "Brother, Mr. Jiang, I'm Vong Kai-kwong's brother. I was blind and foolish. Please be magnanimous. Don't hold it against us." I leaned against the doorframe, looking at him without emotion. "What do you want?" "We're neighbors. We see each other all the time. I know we were wrong. Truly wrong. We'll compensate 50,000, no, 100,000. That's all we can gather." Could you withdraw the report? 100,000 to buy 10 years of freedom for his brother. Clever arithmetic. No. His face stiffened. Mr. Jiang, you should leave room for future encounters. Do you really have to push someone to the edge? When he sold the bike, why didn't he think about leaving himself room? I asked. But he didn't know it was that expensive. Stealing 1.000 is theft. Stealing 400.000 is also theft. The only difference is that he was unlucky enough to steal something he can't afford to repay. I looked at him word by word. My bike, 400.000. Not a cent less. His prison sentence, 10 years. Not a day less. Then I slammed the door. Angry curses rang outside. Soon after, knocking sounded again. This time it was Trong Tui Fan crying. She knelt at my door. Tears and snot smeared everywhere. Slapping her own face. Tiu Jiang, I beg you, have mercy. If he goes to prison, how will this family live? I'm begging you. Thud, thud, thud. She was actually banging her head against the door. I turned on video recording on my phone and opened it. Seeing the door open, she cried louder and reached to grab my legs. I stepped back. Mrs. Vong, your behavior is seriously affecting my life. I've recorded this. If you continue harassing me, I'll call the police for disturbance. My voice wasn't loud, but her crying stopped instantly. She looked up, tear-streaked face full of disbelief. Maybe she hadn't expected a mild-looking young man to be this hard. Why you? Get out. Just one word. Her body trembled violently. Finally she stood, pointed at me, eyes full of venom. Fine, you're ruthless. If my family is finished, even in death I won't let you go. I watched her staggering figure leave and shut the door. Become a ghost? I'll be waiting. The matter quickly spread through the residential complex's group chat. At first a few people close to Vong Kai Kwong spoke up for him. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Pushing your luck. It's just a motorcycle. Do you really have to drive someone to ruin? Exactly. Young people are too hot-tempered. Neighbors bump into each other. That's normal. Brother Vong only meant well but messed up. Just compensate some money and it's over. I didn't say a word in the group. I simply took the case summary lawyer Kim had prepared, including the bike invoices, modification list, total amount involved, and the sentence Vong Kai Kwong could face, compiled it into a clear PDF file, and sent it straight into the chat. After that, I directly tagged the people who had shouted the loudest. If someone's car were sold by a neighbor for 3 yuan and they'd still be willing to settle it with a little compensation. I sincerely admire that. Also, everyone is welcome to chip in to help Vong Kai Kwong gather 400.000 yuan in compensation and serve his 11-year sentence for him. The group chat fell into dead silence. The ones who had been making snide remarks earlier didn't dare utter another word. From that moment on, the wind direction completely shifted. 400,000 for a motorcycle? That's beyond imagination. Theft starting at 10 years, this time Vong Kai Kwong's hit a rock. Serves him right. I hate people who rely on their age to touch other people's stuff without permission. Support Tiu Jiang defending his rights. People like this should face legal punishment. When the wall collapses, everyone pushes. Human nature is like that. I was used to it. Vong Kai Kwong's social connections collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. I heard his small repair company had to halt several projects because he was detained. Partners withdrew investment one after another. A foreman even brought workers to his house demanding unpaid wages. Trong Tui Fan couldn't handle it alone. She cried at home every day. Their son, a college student who had been their pride, now couldn't hold his head up at school because his father was a convicted thief. A family that once seemed fairly stable was shattering piece by piece because of one stupid, greedy decision. I felt no sympathy at all. When an avalanche happens, not a single snowflake is innocent. He brought it all on himself. The damage appraisal report came back. Because of the crude dismantling, many precision components were irreparably damaged. The professional agency estimated repair and restoration costs at 350 yuan. Adding depreciation, total losses exceeded 400,000. That report became another hammer blow against Vong Kai-kwong. Lawyer Kim told me, with this report, the civil compensation case is practically a 100% win. The court will enforce it compulsorily, auctioning all assets under his name to compensate you, including the apartment they live in. The trial date was set for 1 month later. During that month, Vong Kai-kwong's family tried everything. They went to my company to cause trouble and were thrown out by security. They tried to find my parents, only to discover mine had emigrated long ago and couldn't be contacted. They even hired some street thugs to intimidate me. The result? Those guys loitered near my complex gate for 2 days before local police invited them in for tea. Every path was blocked. All they could do was watch the trial date approach. On the day of the hearing, the sky was gloomy. I wore a black suit and sat in the plaintiff's seat, expression calm. Across from me, in the defendant's seat, Vong Kai-kwong looked 20 years older after just 1 month. Gray hair mottled his head. His face hollowed out. He wore an orange prison uniform, wrists still cuffed. In the gallery, Trong Tui Fan cried so hard she nearly fainted, supported by relatives. There were no surprises in the trial. Lawyer Kim's arguments were clear. The chain of evidence complete. From purchase invoices to modification lists. From surveillance footage to appraisal reports. Each piece of evidence locked Vong Kai-kwong's guilt into place. His defense attorney, a court-appointed lawyer, had almost nothing to say, only repeating weak lines like, "The defendant is a first-time offender, subjective malice was limited. Please reduce the sentence." When it was time for his final statement, Vong Kai-kwong finally broke down. Tears and mucus smeared his face as he looked at me, voice hoarse with pleading. "Jiang-do, Mr. Jiang, I was wrong. I really was wrong. I was blind. I'm not human. Please, please spare me once. I have a wife and child to support. I can't go to prison." He even tried to kneel but was held by court officers. His desperate sobbing echoed through the courtroom. The judge struck the gavel, face stern. I hadn't looked at him once from beginning to end. "Now you know you were wrong?" Too late. His pleas weren't worth a cent to me. After a 15-minute recess, the court delivered its verdict on the spot. The judge's emotionless voice rang through the solemn courtroom. The defendant, Vong Kai-kwong, committed theft. Facts are clear. Evidence is reliable. The property stolen is of especially large value. Circumstances are serious and must be punished severely according to law. The defendant is sentenced to 11 years imprisonment and fined 50,000 yuan. Additionally, within 10 days after this judgment takes effect, the defendant must compensate the plaintiff, Jiang-do, for total economic losses of 403.700 yuan. Boom! Outside the window a lightning bolt tore the sky apart, followed by thunder that shook the air. Hearing the sentence, Vong Kai-kwong collapsed into his chair like mud, murmuring, "It's over, it's all over." In the gallery, Trong Tui Fan let out a shriek, rolled her eyes back, and fainted. The courtroom erupted into chaos. I stood, straightened my suit collar, and walked out slowly with Lawyer Kim. Outside, rain poured. I didn't open an umbrella. I simply stepped into the downpour. The icy rain hitting my face felt refreshing. This battle that had lasted more than a month was finally over. Criminal judgment, civil compensation, Vong Kai-kwong in prison. His family on the verge of collapse. That was the price he had to pay. After the verdict took effect, Vong Kai-kwong was transferred to prison to serve his sentence. As for the civil compensation, his family couldn't raise 400.000 yuan at all. So the court initiated compulsory enforcement. Their only asset was the apartment across from mine. Soon, the court's seizure notice was pasted on his door. Black letters on red paper glaring against the pale wall. Trong Tui Fan went completely insane. Like a shrew, she tore off the notice and lay blocking her doorway, refusing entry to anyone. Enforcement officers came several times with judicial police and were obstructed by her crying and disruption. But the authority of the law cannot be challenged. The final time, the court directly enforced eviction. No matter how she rolled, cursed, or damned 18 generations of my ancestors, she was dragged out by police. Furniture, appliances, household items, everything belonging to their family was carried out and loaded onto trucks. Many neighbors stood watching, pointing and gossiping at the fallen state of the Vong family. I stood by my own window, silently watching it all, watching the woman who had once been arrogant before me now sitting collapsed in the hallway like a stray dog. Eyes empty, face full of despair. I felt no gloating, no pity. I was merely an outsider, coldly observing how cause and effect completes its cycle, retribution never missing its mark. After the apartment was cleared, it was quickly listed for judicial auction. Starting price 30% below market. Lawyer Kim called me. Mr. Jiang, are you interested in that apartment? I stayed silent for a few seconds. Yes. I'll handle the auction procedures for you. Why was I interested? Maybe I wanted to draw the most perfect period possible at the end of this reckoning. Maybe I wanted to erase completely the traces those vicious neighbors had once left in my life. Or maybe I simply found it the ultimate irony. He destroyed what I cherished most. I took away the roof he relied on to live. Very fair. On auction day, I went in person. There weren't many participants, after all. Judicial auctions still made people wary. The price climbed steadily. When it reached 1.8 million, only I and another middle-aged man remained in the room. I raised my paddle. 1.81 million. He looked over and frowned, clearly weighing it. I raised my paddle again. 1.9 million. I jumped the price by 90,000 in one go, making it obvious I intended to win. The man hesitated for a moment, then lowered his paddle. The auctioneer's gavel struck. Sold. 1.9 million. Congratulations to this gentleman. Sparse applause sounded in the room. I had bought Vong Kai Kwang's apartment at a price far below market value. The procedures were completed quickly. 1 week later, I held the new ownership certificate in my hands. I stood before that familiar door and unlocked it. Inside was empty, nothing but dust and a few scraps left behind during the move. On the wall remained the faint outline where their family photo had once hung. It looked absurdly ironic. I didn't rush renovations. I simply hired people to clean the entire apartment from top to bottom. Then I knocked down the wall between the two units. My home instantly doubled in size. The former living room became a private screening room. Vong Kai Kwang and Trong Tui Fan's bedroom was remodeled into a gym. Their son's room turned into a spacious walk-in closet. But my favorite place was the balcony that had once belonged to them. The view was open, sunlight abundant. I put a comfortable lounge chair there. On clear days I brewed tea, leaned back, and watched the traffic below and the flow of people passing by. I wondered whether Vong Kai Kwang got tired pedaling the sewing machine in prison. And whether he'd ever thought that every rotation of that pedal was adding another brick to my mortgage for this apartment. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye. A year went by. My life returned to peace. Even better than before. At work, thanks to an outstanding project, I was promoted. In life, I had a larger home and more time to enjoy my own silence. As for the Ducati V4 that had been destroyed, I didn't sell what remained of it. I spent a large sum ordering genuine parts from Italy, hired the best mechanics in the country, and after 3 months restored it to like new condition, its performance even stronger than before. It once again became that blazing red beast, resting quietly in the private garage I'd bought with an independent security system. I rarely rode it out wildly anymore. It was more like a decorated comrade in arms now, a symbol reminding me of that unpleasant past and bearing witness to my victory. News about the Vong family reached me occasionally through neighborhood gossip. Trong Tui Fan had taken her son and moved into a shabby rental. She got a job as a supermarket cashier, standing more than 10 hours a day for meager pay. Her son, once their pride, couldn't bear the shock of having a father who was a convicted thief or the pointing fingers of classmates. He dropped out of college and shut himself in his room playing games all day, becoming useless. Just like that, The family collapsed completely. Sometimes I wondered whether I had gone too far. But that thought lasted only a second. Then I remembered Vong Kai Kwang's patronizing tone on the phone. I remembered Trong Tui Fan's vicious face when she cursed me outside my door. I remembered the mutilated V4 lying twisted apart. Any softness vanished instantly. I wasn't wrong. I only took back the fairness that belonged to me and returned it in the way they found hardest to accept, double. I didn't destroy a family. I simply witnessed two adults pay for their stupidity, greed, and arrogance. One weekend afternoon, I lay on my new balcony while sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass and warmed my body. My phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up casually. Hello. The other end was silent for a long time. So long I thought it was a spam call. I was about to hang up when a hoarse-aged voice sounded hesitantly. Is this Jiang Du? I frowned. The voice sounded familiar. This is he. Who is it? I'm Trong Tui Fan. I paused for a second. The corner of my mouth lifting in a cold smile. Persistent as a leech. What do you want? My tone was indifferent. I heard you bought our apartment. It's my apartment now. I remodeled it. Silence again. Long. Broken only by suppressed sobbing. Jiang Du, I'm begging you. I'll kneel if I have to. Can you sell the apartment back to us? We really can't lose it. It's our life's work. Do you think that's possible? I asked. We'll gather money. Sell everything. You bought it for 1.9 million. We'll pay 2 million. No, 2.1 million. Please. Her voice was full of despair. A year ago she had stood outside my door cursing me to die miserably. A year later she was begging in a nearly groveling tone for me to sell the place back. Truly ironic. Trong Tui Fan, do you know what I hate most? I didn't wait for her answer. What I hate most is people like you. You never realize your own mistakes. You always think others wronged you. A year ago you thought I destroyed your family over a broken bike. Now you think I should return your apartment. Have you ever considered that from beginning to end it was all your fault? No, we know we were wrong. Truly wrong, she sobbed. You don't know. I cut in, voice cold as ice. You only regret it. You regret provoking someone you couldn't afford to provoke. If that day I had just been an ordinary worker without enough evidence for 400 yuan. Maybe I'd have had to swallow it. And you would have taken that 3.000 and laughed comfortably at a fool. Unfortunately, there is no if. I rose from the lounge chair, walked to the window, and looked down. My apartment isn't for sale. I live very comfortably. And one more thing, don't bother me again. Vong Kai Kwang still has a long 11 years ahead of him. I don't mind sending another member of your family in to join him. I hung up and blocked the number. At last, the world was completely quiet. That evening, I rode the restored V4 along the coastal road. The sea breeze carried a faint salty dampness. The engine gave off a low, pleasing growl like a beast just waking. I twisted the throttle and the bike shot forward like an arrow released from a bow. The sensation of speed left every annoyance behind. I streaked past the city's glitter, past the stillness along the mountainside, and finally stopped at a high point overlooking the brilliant nightscape below. I took off my helmet and lit a cigarette. Beneath a sky full of stars, the city lights merged into a shimmering galaxy. My phone vibrated, a message from Lawyer Kim. Mr. Jiang, the final compensation payment from Vong Kai Kwang has been forcibly transferred into your account by the court. At this point, all matters of the case are officially concluded. I replied with 2 words. Thank you. Then I deleted the entire chat history with Lawyer Kim. Everything was over. The drama that began with arrogance and ignorance had finally closed with a perfect period. I had obtained the justice I wanted. Vong Kai Kwang paid the price he deserved. I didn't become the kind of person who wipes away grudges with a smile. And I had no intention of becoming one. Repay resentment with kindness? Then what repays kindness? Repay resentment with straightforwardness. That was my principle. I took a deep drag of the cigarette and slowly exhaled. The smoke dissolved into the night and quickly vanished. Just like Vong Kai Kwong's family would eventually vanish completely from my life. I got on the bike, put on my helmet, and took one last look at the lights of thousands of homes below the mountain. Then I started the engine and sped forward toward a farther road. My life had only just begun. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.